Hi everyone, welcome back to part 2, and we are making our winter's tale cardi coat. Okay, so at this point we should be quite low down here to start making our stripes again. Okay, so I said that I will come back and tell you about the number of rows right here. As you can see, I have marked the row right under the waist where I have started, and we have to match the number of rows to the waist, the gray ones for me from the last stripe, so right here, and then extra 4 or 5 rows. Now I ended up making extra 5 rows. I'm going to tell you why. So when I did my, remember I had my 26 rows, I made my 26 rows, then extra 4, and I ended up on this side of the cardigan. So I had to make 1 extra row, so this is actually then plus 5 instead of 4, just so I would finish in on this side right here. So when you have your cardigan on the right side up, like this, your hook should be under your right hand. Okay, so as I'm done, I am going to chain 1 and cut my yarn. I'm going to make my first stripe. Now I'm going to be going quite quickly through the stripes right here. This is kind of just a reminder, because we will be doing everything exactly the same as we have done here, apart from the corners. We are not going to have that. It is only going to be 1 single crochet into each stitch. One more thing that I want to remind you is count your stitches. Make sure that it's an odd number of stitches that you have, because that is important for this row right here. If at this point you forgot to count and you have an even number, you're going to have one more chance when you are making the second row of white single crochets right here. So this is 2 rows. You can make an increase in that second row and it will not be noticeable. Otherwise, if you make 2 single crochets in 1 stitch in any of these stripes, it will be noticeable. Okay, so this is the row where you want to do it, the second white for me row. Okay, so I have 159 stitches. The number doesn't is not important. As long as it is odd number, it is absolutely fine. Okay, so we are gonna start striping again. I'm gonna get my white color. Here we go. And I am going to start where I left off. Again, I'm not gonna do any slip knots. I'm just gonna start like that. So chain 1 and 1 single crochet into each stitch to the end of this row. So as these are easy, I will just be showing the beginning. So this is the first stripe. Go all the way around. I'll meet you at the end. Okay, so the white stripe is done. I'm gonna chain 1 and cut, leave a longer tail. I will attach my main color again. Make sure you leave those tails on the inside of the coat, which is right here. And again, this is a single crochet row, 1 single crochet into each stitch. I'm gonna go over those tails for a few stitches and then just leave them. So again, very easy, single crochet row, 1 single crochet into each stitch. Now I might just tell you what to do next, because it might be a really long part again. So we have 1 stripe in the secondary color. Now we're just started 1 stripe in the main color. Then the next stripe again is going to be white for me, or secondary color for you, and then again your main color. So I will see you once we have 4 stripes. So for me it is white, gray, or secondary color, main color, secondary, and main color. Just 1 single crochet into each stitch. Okay, so that is done. 1, 2, 3, 4, or 2 stripes in our second color, and we have the main color on the bottom right now. Again, color change. I'm changing into white. I'm going to chain 1, cut. I'm changing into white, and I have 2 rows of single crochets in the same color right now. This way. Okay. So 2 rows of this, and now this is the place where you if you had an even number of stitches, okay, so first row of the second color or the secondary color, you just make 1 single crochet to the end of the row, turn around, and when you're doing the second row of this color, you can just make 2 single crochets in the same stitch if you need to change up your stitch count, okay, into the odd number. So row 1, and then in row 2 somewhere at the middle just put 2 single crochets. If you have an odd number now, just keep going with 2 rows of single crochets. Now once we have those 2 rows done, we are going to start the row in the very middle. This is the half double crochet row where we are swapping the 2 colors around. So have your other color nearby ready, and we start with chaining 1, turn, and half double crochet, and we do not pull through any loops. That's where we take the other color, and we finish that half double crochet with the main color. So then start a half double crochet into the next stitch, stop, you're gonna lose the tail, swap colors, finish with the other. Now I'm just reminding you this, I am sure you can remember how it was done from when we did that on the top of the cardigan or on the yoke. So this is it. Now you start this row, so it's white color for me, and I will because I have an odd number, I will finish it in white as well. I don't want to talk too much right here, so I'm just gonna tell you quickly about the next few rows because they are going to be repeat, or we will just be mirroring this part right here. So if you have a little piece of paper, you might want to write that down. Okay, so we are on the half double crochet row. I'm just gonna write that down. Half double crochet row. After that, once you finish that, you're gonna have another 2 rows of single crochets. So 2 rows of your secondary color, which is white for me, so I'm just gonna write down white, then 1 row of your main color, so gray for me, 1 row of white, again 1 row of gray, and 1 row of white. So as you can see right here, we're gonna do exactly the same thing: white, white, gray, white, gray, white, and then I'm gonna meet you up here and we will finish the last few rows. I'm just gonna talk about if you want to make it a little bit longer, but hopefully that makes sense. So we are just going, after we finish this row, we were just going to make a mirror reflection of what we have made right here. So 2 of the same color, gray, white. We just should have 2 more white stripes or whatever color you use on the bottom right there. So finish that. And I will come back and we will be talking a little bit about finishing the length of the cardigan. Okay, so at this point our stripes are completely finished and we just need to do a few rows just to finish the bottom right here. Okay, so now it's just single crochet rows. You just have to decide how many you want to make. I'm only going to make 2 rows. So from where I have finished, 1 and 2, and then straight away from this point I will start doing my edging. Now if you want to add a little bit more length, you can do even number rows, so 2, 4, 6 or 8 if you want to get it longer. Now I have already had a chance to make one of my sleeves, so you can see that the cardigan or the little coat is longer than the sleeve, so you can either do the sleeves before and then decide how long you want to make it. Sometimes it does help to decide. So you can see it looks like this. It's gonna have another tiny little bit there. So whatever you feel like you want to do. Okay, but I'm going to finish this now. So, like I said, it is just another few rows. I'm just gonna grab my gray. And again, just one single crochet into each stitch for the next 2 rows. Or if you want more, you can do more, like 2, 4, 6, 8, or and so on. And actually, one more thing, if you are not sure about the length right now, if you want how many rows you want to do, what you can do is make 2 rows now. We will do the edging. Then on the buttonholes and everything, you can do the sleeves and then decide. You can always put another few rows at the bottom when we have the edge done right here. I have done this on my dark burgundy cardigan. I have added another few rows once I had the edging. You will not be able to see that. So again, one way to add some length. Okay. For now, just continue on for whatever amount of rows you want. I will come back after I make 2 rows of single crochets. So 1 and 2. I will finish on this side. Now I have finished that. I have 2 rows at the bottom right here. And the next thing is, now we have to get those tails sewn in. So we have to be ready to do the edging. Again, I'm just going to remind you how to do this. So whatever you want to sew in, just make sure, like, remember I do not have knots when I was starting. Some of these, so I need to make knots to make sure that it doesn't unravel to me. So I'm just gonna split. I'm gonna go here, go back around, catch that loop, and I have a knot, and I'll just hide in between. And this is the way to hide all your tails. So I'm gonna see you after that and we can start on the edging. Okay, so I'm all set to start the buttonhole side. We should be under our left hand side at the bottom. Make sure that you have the correct side of your cardigan, like this. Okay, so the very first row that we are going to do is we are going to do slip stitches at the very edge. Okay, so we will be slip stitching into each row at the very edge. That will make it all nice and straight right here. So we start with chaining 1, and then we start our slip stitches. So at the very side of it, at the very edge. Make sure you don't make them too tight so it's not rolling. Okay, so this is the half double crochet row. Into the next. Now once we go past that bottom stripe right here, what we want to do, if you look now, your front, if you put it straight, your front part is a little bit longer. As you can see at the bottom, a couple of centimeters right here, it is longer, and the front as well as the back part. That's why we want to do a little bit of decreasing right here, so it pulls in the edge nicely, so we have the same length, the front and the back everywhere. So I will do 4 slip stitches, and I will just skip the number 5 one. Now I'm gonna show you right here. Okay, so I do the next one. So this is where my next slip stitch would be, so I'm just gonna skip this and go straight into the next side of the row, into the next row. I just skipped one. Then 4 slip stitches. So this is 1, 2, 3 and 4. Where I would put my next slip stitch right here, I'm just gonna skip this and go straight into the next. And again, 1, 2, 3 and 4. This would be my number 5. I will just skip that place. And 1, 2, 3 and 4. This would be my 5. I skip, go into the next place. 1, 2, 3, 4. Skip. 1, 2, 3 and 4. So skip. 1, 2, 3 and 4. Skip. 1, 2, 3 and 4. Skip. So keep going until you reach your top stripe right here. Once you reach your top stripe, you stop skipping. You just make 1 slip stitch into the side of each row. And then again, once you go past that last stripe, again you want to do the same, so you'll probably have 2 slip stitches that you have skipped. Okay, so I have one right here. I'm gonna skip this one. I'm gonna go straight above it and make a slip stitch. Then I will use these stitches from the ribbing, and again, so I just had 1, 2, 3, 4. I should do a slip stitch here. I'm just gonna skip over that, and I have 1, 2 and 3 slip stitches. So, and if you look right now, our edge should be much more, so you can see it now pretty much matches the length of the back if I just pull it like this. Okay, now row number 2 of the edging is single crochet row, but we will be making those single crochets into the first loop of our slip stitches. So if we, let me just turn, so we chain 1 and turn. Now you're gonna have to look careful, okay? So if you look, this is your slip stitch, your very first slip stitch, and we're just going to catch the front loop. So skip the chain 1, find that first loop, and make a single crochet. Look for your second. So this is the slip stitch, and I'm just gonna catch the front loop. It might be a little bit difficult, but I promise you the edge is going to look much nicer. Again, only the front loop. And just like that, keep going to the very, very bottom of your coat. So just like that, keep going to the bottom. Okay, so I'm finished with that. Look how nice and neat that edge looks. It looks really, really nice and straight. Okay, so the next row, it is where we are going to make our buttonholes. So grab a few stitch markers. I'm gonna grab 5. Now I have 4 and 5. So, and we're going to mark out the places where we want our buttonholes to be. So the very top one, I want to be kind of in the middle of this collar. So I'm just gonna grab here. Make sure that you have at least 2 or 3, probably 3 stitches after your stitch marker. So this is the top one. Let me see, I think I want then another one around here somewhere. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 stitches in between. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 in between. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And one more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So right here, I might just make maybe 6 buttonholes. It just looks a little bit high up here for the last button. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I'm gonna have 6 buttons then. I need to find another one. Okay, now you want to have one of your buttons that you're going to use nearby, and the next thing is we are going to chain 1 and turn, and we are going to make 1 single crochet into both loops as normal all the way until we get to our first stitch marker. So just keep making those single crochets, and I'm gonna see you right here. So I got to my stitch marker, and first thing that I'm going to try for the buttonhole is chaining 2, skipping 2 stitches, 1, 2, and making a single crochet. Now I'm gonna check if these buttonholes are good for my buttons. Let's go through. I think it might be a little bit too loose. I want it kind of a nice and snug there. So what I'm going to do, I chain 2. Instead of skipping 2 stitches, I am only going to skip 1 stitch. That will make my buttonhole a little bit tighter. So perfect. So I chained 2 but only skipped 1 stitch. Whatever works for you, you chain 2 or skip 2 stitches, or chain 2 skip 1 stitch. You do exactly the same with the other buttonholes. And I'm gonna show you in the next row what we are gonna do with those chains. So keep going. Every time you get to your stitch marker, so stitch marker there, I'm gonna chain 2, and I'm only going to skip that 1 stitch because I need slightly smaller buttonholes. and then continue on. Okay, I'm skipping one, and so continue on just like that to the top of the coat. Okay, so finish that row. I'm gonna chain one, and this is the last row of our edging on this side. So I'm gonna turn, make one single crochet into each stitch, and then when you get to your chains, you're gonna make as many single crochets as you have skipped stitches at the bottom. So I have 2 chains, but I only skipped 1 stitch at the bottom, so I'm just gonna make 1 single crochet right here. You need to match the number of single crochets as the skipped stitches at the bottom, and then just straight into the next stitch and 1 single crochet. Okay, again my chain 2 space, but I only skipped 1 stitch. I only make 1 single crochet. If you have skipped 2 stitches, you make your 2 single crochets there. You just need to match that number, and that's all there is to this row. Just keep going and finish off at the bottom. Okay, so I am finished. I'm gonna chain 1, cut my yarn, and I'm gonna do exactly the same on the other side. Apart from the buttonholes, I only need buttonholes on one side, and I already made them. Okay, let me just see how everything looks. So here we go, nice and straight edge with the little buttonholes. Okay, so like I said, we're gonna do exactly the same on the other side, but we need to start our slip stitches at the very top right here to match our single crochet rows, so they all look the same as the other side. So at the very top, I am going to insert my hook, chain 1, and start slip stitching. Now remember, we skipped a couple of rows right here with the slip stitches. I got to skip 2, so I'm gonna do exactly the same on this side. I'm just gonna make 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna skip 1 into the next one. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm gonna skip this one, and I'm gonna keep going with my 1 slip stitch into the side of each row, or onto the edge of each row. And once I go past that stripe, again I'm gonna be doing 4 slip stitches and skipping the next one. Okay, so I'm just gonna do 1 more, and then I skip, and 1, 2, 3, 4. I would have my 5th here. I'm gonna skip that into the next space. 1, 2, 3, and 4, skip. 1, 2, 3, 4, skip, and just keep going. You only need to do the skipping while you're in between these 2 stripes, and then just finish off with 1 slip stitch until the very bottom of the coat. Okay, slip stitch is done. Chain 1 and turn, and again we will be making 1 single crochet into the front loop of the slip stitch. Now I have showed you that before, so I'm just gonna be really quick. So into the front loop, and this is first single crochet row, and we need 3 in total. So row 1 into the back loop going up, row 2 in both loops coming down, and row 3 of single crochets, 1 single crochet into each stitch all the way up to the top, and this is where we finish our edge. So that is finished. I have my edges done, and what I want to do now is I want to sew in my buttons. So I'm going to start at the very top one. I'm going to show you one. First of all, I'm going to, I should have probably done the tails, I'll do that later. So I'm just gonna match beautifully the 2 top edges right here. I'm gonna find that buttonhole, and I'm just gonna stick my needle right into the middle of the buttonhole. Oh, that didn't work this time. Again, one more. So right here, and then if you open it, you have the needle in the actual place where your button should be sewn in. Then I'm just gonna go from the bottom up, grab a button in, and pull. Now I have a knot at the very end of both threads, so it's sewn, it's kind of a threaded together or knotted together. I'm just gonna go in between them two, and I don't need a knot, and my button is going to stay in place now. It's gonna go one way and the other one. So this is 3. I'll do one more. Oops. This happens a lot with wooden buttons, as they have sharp edges at the holes there. So like this. Right there, and one more. Make a knot at the back, I'll make a double knot. I'm gonna go once into the loop and the second time around the same loop. I'm gonna pull tight and hide the tail a little bit. I don't want to cut it off too close to the knot so it doesn't unravel or get loose. And one more. It's a little far. It's okay. And done. I have one button sewn in, and I need another 5. Just make sure that it is nice and even, just like that. I'm very happy with it. So keep going, sew in all your buttons. Just make sure that if you have a button right here where the stripe is, make sure that the stripes match. If you need to give it a little pull, give it a little pull. It's just so if you sew in the button a little bit too high, it will not match the other side and it will not look nice. So keep going, finish off your edges right here, and we will start with the sleeves. Okay, so we are going to start the sleeves now. First things first, the total length of the sleeve. Let me see. So sleeve length is right here, and for me, as I'm making 5 to 6 years, it is 28.5 centimeters in full length. Now when we measure this, we measure, just sorry, from underneath the armhole. Okay, so I'm just gonna flatten it out, and from the underneath the arm to the cuff right here. Okay, so I'm approximately 29 centimeters in length, and then plus we do 12 single crochets for the roll back ribbing cuff. Okay, so measure from here to here, and everything you make after is for rolling back, just like that. Okay, so it is going to be a lengthy process making those sleeves. I'm going to show you what I did. So I was writing everything down what I did for the sleeves. So this is each row of my sleeves. So in the row 1 we're going to do 2 decreases, and then whatever number of stitches we have left, and then every third row we're gonna do 1 decrease. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so you will keep going every 3 rows making a decrease. That is going to give us the shape of kind of a becoming smaller. So as you can see, so I wrote down all of my rows, and that is not even all of it. So I have 47 rows in total, and that is without the cuff. Okay, if we get started, it might get easier for you. You might want to get yourself 2 stitch markers. That might be helpful. So find the bottom of your armhole where you have the chains. Now you might have 1, 2, or whatever number of chains, it does not matter. Okay, and we're going to connect as close to the middle of it as we can. So I had 1, 2, 3 chains. I'm just gonna connect into the second chain. I'm going to chain 1, and first of all we need to figure out which way to go. So look at your very last row. As you can see, my one is like a little V's right here. That means that I'm gonna start my next row on the inside like this. So I'm gonna go kind of making single crochets from the inside. If your very last row looks a bit more like this, the 2 little legs here, and then I don't know what I can call this, so it's kind of a V upside down. Okay, just like that. You will connect in the same place, but you will be just going on the outside for the first row, but everything else is exactly the same. Okay, so chain 1 and then turn if you need to. I need to turn. We're going to put 1 single crochet back into that same chain, so the chain 1 doesn't actually count as a stitch. So put a single crochet in there, and now the stitch that you have left right here, if you need it, you can mark it, is where we are going to connect. So right behind the loop on the hook, right here. Put it in if you need to. Then the next 2 places we're going to crochet together. Now I have 1 more chain left right here, and then the single crochet that I have connected with. So I'm gonna go into the chain first, pull my yarn and leave it, and then into the single crochet, pull that out, yarn over, and pull through all 3 loops. So this is 1 decrease. So I have 1 and 2 stitches. Now crochet 2 together, but I have 1 stitch on top, so I count this as 1. And you want to count the number of stitches in the first row so you can match the second sleeve exactly. So I have 1, 2, and then you look for those stitches all the way around. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4. Just go around. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and keep counting until you have 2 spaces left on the other side. So right here at the very bottom to make another decrease. Okay, so I'm at the very end. I have 43 stitches. I need to do 1 more decrease, and there's a chain right here that is left, and the single crochet that I have connected my yoke with. So I'm gonna go where my single crochet is, pull it out and leave it, and into the very last chain. Now it might be hard to see. Look at your sleeve and just see where the last 2 spaces are that you would usually put stitches in and then just crochet them together. Now once you finish, so I have a stitch marker in that very first stitch. I'm just gonna make a slip stitch. I'm gonna take that out. Get your other stitch marker. This is again one more thing that I'm going to do. Every time I make a decrease in a row, I'm going to mark that row. So this is the row that I had my decreases. Okay, so to start the next row, you're going to chain 1 and turn. Now you want to put your very first single crochet right under the chain 1. Sometimes it might look a little small, do not worry, but you don't get to miss that stitch. So put a single crochet in there. And again, I'm just gonna mark that stitch that is left after I made this. And the row number 2, we don't do any decreasing, we just put 1 single crochet into each stitch all the way around. So this is row number 2. And you might as well write it down if you have somewhere. It is always helpful, so you can see row number 1 I had 2 decreases, 44 stitches in total. Row 2 the same number of stitches. Row 3 again the same number of stitches. And I will be just checking while I go, just to make sure that both of my sleeves are exactly the same. So for row 2, just keep going with 1 single crochet all the way around the sleeve to the other side. Okay, so I finished the second row. I am ready to connect. Now it might look like I have 1 more stitch right here. It kind of looks like a stitch, but if you look closely, your chain 1, this is the chain 1, is connected to that stitch. It's coming straight out of it. So we leave that be. If you find it hard to spot your very last stitch, just count the stitches all the way around, and if you write everything down, you're gonna know. So in the end of row 2, I should have 44 single crochets. So once you finish, again, I'm gonna slip stitch to the very first stitch. I have this marked. I'm gonna chain 1, take this out. I'm going to turn, and I'm gonna make a single crochet right under that chain 1. So right under there, 1 single crochet. Again, mark your stitch if you need to, so you know where to connect exactly. And row 3, again, 1 single crochet into each stitch all the way around the sleeve. Okay, so I have finished my row 3. Again, it might look like I have another stitch, but if you look closely, that chain 1 is in that stitch, so you just leave it. Okay, slip stitch into the very first stitch, chain 1, and we're gonna start row 4 right now. But so as it is a decrease row right here, okay, so this is why I have this stitch marker on the side, so it will be easier for me to keep track. So there was a decrease in this row where it's marked, and I have 2 rows up above without decreasing. Okay, so this kind of a stitch marker is just in case I get lost or I forget to count my rows or whatever. This will be the easy way for me to figure out where I am at. Okay, so you should have stitch marker and then 1-2 rows in the top above it to know that you are on to do a decrease. So row number 4 -1. Okay, I'm gonna take the stitch marker out, and the decreasing on the sleeves is super duper easy. So we're not gonna crochet 2 single crochets together for this. Okay, so you chained 1, and now usually you would be making a single crochet right back into that little stitch right under the chain 1. All we're going to do is we're gonna skip that stitch. We're not gonna make a single crochet in there, just make a single crochet in the next stitch, and here you go, you already have decreased by 1 stitch just by skipping it. Okay, mark that stitch back to know where you are connecting, and then keep going for the rest of the row, making one single crochet into each stitch. And at this point I'm just gonna move the stitch marker up because I have new row that I have just made a decrease in. So I'm gonna mark the side of that row. So keep going, and you should have one less single crochet than you had in the previous row. I have finished my row. I have 43 single crochets, and I'm gonna slip stitch into the stitch that I have marked. Slip stitch. Now the next two rows, again, after you make a decrease, the next two rows are just normal one single crochet into each stitch. So you chain one and turn, and when you don't make a decrease, you just make a single crochet right underneath that chain one. I'm gonna mark that very first stitch, and I will just keep going with one single crochet, and again I should have the same number of stitches as on the other side. So make now make two rows without decreasing, so one and then another one. Okay, so I have two rows without decreasing. I'm gonna slip stitch into the very first stitch. I'm gonna chain one and turn. So this is row number 7 for me. I have a decrease again, so no decrease, no decrease, decrease, no, no, yes, no, no, yes, and you will keep going like this. I'm just gonna mark that I am doing this row right now. So turn, and again all you do is you don't put the very first single crochet in, you just skip that, go into the next stitch and put your single crochet. If you need, mark your stitch where you are going to connect, and that is all to the decreasing. At the end of this row I am going to have one less stitch, so I should be at 42 single crochets. And this is really all there is to it, the whole sleeve. Like you can see on my notes, I just kept decreasing in every third row until I reached the full length of my sleeve, so 28.5 centimeters for me. If you need to look at the chart, you can go onto my Facebook page and just have a look there. There is a good picture up there, so you can see everything very clear. I just want to show you that stitch marker that is reminding me on the side there that I'm just going to move once I reach it. I'm just going to move it up because I just made a decrease in this row. So there is a good bit of work still left in here, especially for me as I'm doing the size 5 to 6 months. I have 5 to 6 years. I have like another 40 rows to go. So I'm just gonna take that out, and I'm going to place it into the side of the row that I just made right now with a decrease. So if I need to, I can just check and continue until you finish. I'm just gonna look careful. Okay, so this is my last stitch. It looks like there's another one, but the chain one is coming out of it. It's kind of a, when you do the decrease, that stitch that you don't crochet in, it's kind of looks really long and flat. Just make sure you don't crochet into it, and then slip stitch, chain one, turn, and then the next 2 rows have no decreasing. So start with a single crochet right under the chain one. Well, hopefully this is not too difficult for you. I think that once you get into the work, it will be easier for you. Once your brain actually accepts this kind of no decrease, no decrease, decrease, no decrease, and so on, it will be really quite easy. It is just quite long for me to make. So keep going, and I will see you when I have finished my row number 47, and your sleeve should get narrower and narrower really slowly. Okay, keep going. I'll see you at the end of the sleeve. And as you can see, I have finished my sleeve. It is a full length now. If I measure, it is approximately 28-29 centimeters in full length. So now I'm just going to add the ribbing at the end of the sleeve to make it look like the other side. But if you want to leave it just like that, it is absolutely fine. You already have the full length of the sleeve. Okay, but I want to do the ribbing, so I'm going to take a smaller hook, 3.5 millimeters, and I will just continue from where I have left off, and I'm going to chain 13. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. Now, if you want to make this longer or shorter, completely up to you. You can change up the length of the starting chain right here. I have 13 chains, and I will have 12 single crochets. So skip the very first stitch into the chain into the second chain. Start your single crochets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and one more, 12. So I will have 12 single crochets every time I crochet up and down this ribbing. So next is you slip stitch into the next stitch. So this is my next stitch. I'm just gonna put a slip stitch in there, and now when we are going to turn, you're gonna skip that slip stitch and start into the back loop of your first stitch. So skip that slip stitch, and this is your first stitch. So you're gonna turn, put your yarn in front, in between the ribbing and your hook. Make sure you skip that slip stitch and into the back loop of your very first stitch. So this is the first stitch, into the back loop only. Start making your single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Chain 1 and turn, skip that chain 1, find the next stitch and into the back loop only. Start making your single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So from now on you're going to skip one stitch. So skip one, into the next stitch make a slip stitch. So skip one, slip stitch. Again, you're gonna skip that slip stitch and start from your first stitch. You're gonna turn, skip that, into the back loop. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, chain 1 and turn, skip that chain 1 into the back loop from your stitch. 1, 2, and you just keep going like this until you until you get all the way around around your sleeve. I just want to show you one more time how to connect, just in case. And it is I do advise you to count your single crochets at least once in a while, just to make sure that you don't miss any stitches. Again, we're gonna connect, we're gonna skip one stitch into the next one, slip stitch, turn, skip the slip stitch, start from the back loop of your first stitch, and keep going. I will see you when we have finished the sleeve. Okay, so I'm finishing up, and once you have 1 or 2 stitches left, so technically I only have 1 stitch right here. This was a slip stitch from the last single crochet row, and the chain is coming out of it, but it technically counts as 1, but you can count it as 2 once you have only a few left right here. So you're going to connect with a slip stitch. Again, go up 1 row. Again, remember, you make sure you have the same number of single crochets. And once you're done, we will slip stitch down. You can sew it on if you feel that it is easier for you. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go into the other side, into the very, very top chain right here. I'm going to chain 1, and I'm going to start slip stitching down, matching stitches from one side and left over chains from the other side, whatever is left from those chains that we have started. And I have 1 more left, so like this, chain 1, cut your yarn, and I am done. I have like 2 tails to hide. Just gonna pull that out, and I am done with my coat. It took me a while, I have to say. It usually goes much quicker when I don't have to do a tutorial, but it did take me a good few days just to finish this. Okay, so I'm gonna go in around, catch the loop, in, knot. I'm just gonna hide the tail in between the last row. This is done. I can roll that back like this. Have 1 more tail underneath the armhole that I have actually crocheted over it a little bit, so I don't need a whole lot of hiding. I'm gonna go in through here and just go in between the stitches. Like that. Happy with that? That is it. I am absolutely finished. Now you probably have another sleeve to do. So just make sure that both sleeves match. And this is what my coat looks like. It doesn't really fit into the screen, but I'm very happy with it. It looks beautiful in gray and white. It looks really homemade. Let's just say that. What I was going to say, oh yes, so about the yarn, how much yarn I have used. So I didn't even use up all 300 grams. I thought I'm gonna need more. I think this yarn is slightly thinner than the red one that I have used before. It's not a whole lot left, but there is some, so I'd say approximately 300 grams anyway you would have to make this for the biggest size. Okay, so thank you very much for watching. Let me know what was the hardest part. Let me think. I think the hardest would have been right here, maybe to start, or at least for me to explain. maybe you had something else that was difficult for you. But anyways, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope that this worked out for you, and I will see you in the next one. Wish you all the best. Bye for now.